So you see that Y right there, right? That's a Y, a lowercase y. Whenever you see a Y in a word or a language or an expression, it's usually religious. It's usually religious. But they don't tell you the Y is a creek opening up into a river. They don't tell you that. It's a hieroglyph. It's a hieroglyph from old Egypt going into Israel. It's a Y. It's a long J that's splitting into a I. A long J splitting into an I. Basically, you have a creek that's splitting into a river. That's basically what it is, which means Ibri or Hebrew. This is why you can spell Hebrew with a Y. If you see a letter, right, and you say, well, how do you spell Hebrew? Or how do you pronounce Hebrew? In many different pronunciations, right? Well, you just can't spell Hebrew with just a bunch of words, including a Y, right? It's usually just Y. It's usually just Y, which is why when you spell Hebrew or Ibri, it's usually like I-B-I, or it's just a letter Y. But depending on how you pronounce that Y, right? Depending on how you pronounce that Y. This is why every tribe has a pronunciation for a letter that pronounces a word. Some of them have more than one pronunciation for just one letter. Depending on the nasal path, depending on the throat cortex, the throat vortex, depending on that, right? Depending on the chest cortex, depending on the stomach thrust, it pronounces the letter into a word. Like M, which would be what? E-M or E-N-N, just M. So the word Y, right, because it's a word, just like many of these other letters, they go into Hebrew. So when you look at because this is the Choctaw Bible, when you look at the Choctaw language, it's basically Hebrew. It's basically Hebrew. Anything that stands aside from English or French or Spanish is Hebrew. This is why all the tribes in Africa, right, those who can write in English and pronounce their words, you notice they're speaking in the Hebrew tongue. Well, it's the same thing for the Choctaw in Mississippi, right? They haven't found out what language the Coahoma speak. They haven't found out what language the Jacksons speak. They haven't found out what language the Tupelo speak. They haven't found out the language that the Biloxi speak. They haven't found out the language that the Natchez speak. They've only found the language that the Choctaw speak in Mississippi. But you have many different other tribes. You have tribes that live within tribes. They haven't found out all their languages. You see? Choctaw is just one language. That's like 99 other languages in Mississippi. 99 of them. You see? This right here, Okla. This word right here, it precedes Choctaw, which means Confederate. In Okla, right, it just means Oklahoma, but it also means Confederate in Choctaw language. And its usage is cousin. Hopokoyo, Hopokoyo, cash, piece of took, piece of took. Get you this book right here, read it, and try to learn from it. I've pretty much learn how to write in my own language as a result of reading this book and reading other books. But this book right here is like the easiest to learn. Because again, this language, it reminds me of Baka. This language reminds me of Baka. The Cameroons. It reminds me of their language. Great peace, Yakoki.